So yesterday I saw the news ticker come across my phone how Donald Trump is going to sign an executive order changing the name of the Department of Defense to or back to the Department of War, which I find hilarious. I don't really see the point of it or the purpose or any of that. I am under the impression at this point, I think he just sits there and is like, what can I do to piss off the liberals so they can just sit there and have something else to about that's like really irrelevant? Like, who really gives that you're changing the name? Just like the Gulf of America, everybody got so bent over him changing the name. Like, who cares? I find it hilarious. I just want to know, can I get a new retired ID that says Department of War? Because I want one.
The White House has confirmed that tomorrow Donald Trump will sign an executive order that rolls back the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Also, Pete Hegseth can be called the Secretary of War. Now, we're not in any active wars. The Department of Defense received that name after World War II, once the United States took on a posture of essentially policing the world that they've held for the last 80 years. Now, the White House notice says that the official name change is happening because the largest, most advanced, fiercest fighting force in the history of the world should not be named defense, because that does not portray power. That portrays weakness and that you're waiting for something to happen, and that the United States doesn't wait for things to happen, it makes things happen. As a veteran who deployed to every war zone that the United States was active in throughout the early 2000s, there's no reason to rename the Department of Defense unless we just want to spend money so Pete Hegseth can be called the Secretary of War.
Donald Trump is taking aim at the most powerful military in the world, his own. In the coming hours, the president is set to sign an executive order that renames the Department of Defense to the Department of War. It's not an entirely new name. There was a Department of War created by George Washington, which was just the country's army. But following the Second World War, when the Army, Navy and Air Force were all brought under the one banner, the Department of Defense was created. It's colloquially referred to as the DoD or the Pentagon, after its uniquely shaped headquarters. Trump has said the name defense is too defensive, and he wants to be on the offensive. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says changing the name to war will promote a warrior ethos. This is the latest in a long line of rebranding efforts by the Trump administration, which also changed the name of a warship that honored a gay rights activist, Harvey Milk, and brought back military bases named after Confederate generals.
Look, y'all, Donald Trump is making headlines again. And this time he wants to change the Department of Defense back to the old Department of War. Let's talk about what that could mean. Here's the deal. The United States actually did have a Department of War from 1789 to 1947, and that's when it was switched to the Department of Defense. And that was after World War II. Now, Donald Trump says the current name sounds too soft and that the old name shows offense. Now, they're saying that lawmakers in Congress are even filing amendments so that way they could make this official. The White House is also looking into whether they could push this through without Congress. Now, some supporters say this move is about being strong against enemies. Now, critics are saying this move is too aggressive and is sending out the wrong message for the United States. But what do you think? Is calling it the Department of War just words, or is it a sign where America is headed?
So guys, today we have a very interesting conversation with us. Donald Trump just signed September 5th an executive order to change the name of the Department of Defense DoD to the Department of War. By saying war, it actually means so much offensive than the defense one, which is a defensive move. Previously, this name has been used and right now it's being restored again. Reason: the name Department of Defense is too woke and it encourages woke behavior. Many people had different reactions, and from the speakers that we've listened before, if you've deduced from that discussions, most of them do not like the idea. Well, the older conservatives feel like it brings nostalgia of the World War II and they just love the name change, while the new generation feel like it actually implies like America wants to go to war or America now going back to war, even though Donald Trump has promised to never start wars or to never engage himself in wars or to never bring US to a point where they can go to military war. You know, an executive order obviously is not like a final thing. The House or the Congress has to solidify that, and it's doubtful if that is going to pass through there unless it's being whipped properly, unless the motion has a good whip. But as for now, it's just an executive order. A lot has been said, just reflected. Having Secretary of Defense to be like Secretary of War, Department of War. I mean, to people like the military officers, like, I don't think they like the name. It brings them memories of, for example, the people who have fought in Afghanistan, you know, the Middle East. They do not like that idea, and it's like it brings PTSD and just memories of the past, skepticism. I think to me, for the longest, Trump has wanted the world to know that US has the best of the best in terms of military, and that's the truth. US has the best military in the world. I mean, theoretically, they have done a lot of PR. We have not seen what Russia has to offer. We've not seen what China has to offer. What I've seen over the week, especially during the Chinese military parade, that is exactly what Donald Trump has been wanting the US military to portray. Optics in terms of being seen in the media and just to be seen by the world that they have the best of the best. But hey, we're going to come back to that when I do my lengthy commentary. Right now, I just want us to continue listening to more discussions or more opinions of people, and then thereafter I'll share my own.
I've been saying for months that Trump can't wait to go to war. Here's more proof. He's going to rebrand the Pentagon as the Department of War. And in order to get around Congress to do it, he's just going to call it the secondary name. Trump and Hegseth have said that they want the rebrand because it looks more aggressive to the rest of the world, and they want to be viewed as aggressors. Why? Because they want to go to war. It's the next phase in their fascist plan. It typically is with fascist regimes. So no, removing immigrants and foreigners from the U.S. is not about drugs or cartels or crimes. It's about getting those people out before people start taking sides from a war perspective. And tariffs aren't about the budget or the deficit or the American good. They're a war chest. I mean, how much more obvious can it be? And we're all just getting caught up in the little tiny stupid ridiculousness of everything when we're getting ready to go to war. It'll be a boom for our economy, right? And you won't have to worry about whatever recession we're in anymore because you'll be making bombs.
We have some news right now. Donald Trump is moving forward with plans to create the Department of War. Yes, I'm serious. He and the administration are now working to rebrand the Department of Defense as the Department of War. Now, if you know anything about the Pentagon's history, it used to be called the Department of War way back in the 1940s. It hasn't been called for many years that name because, well, the United States doesn't just go to war every day, at least according to politicians. Now, here's the thing. Donald Trump can't actually do this without congressional approval, but he probably will get Republican support here because this is not a big issue that Republicans typically will disagree on. But it is interesting that the President of the United States, who says that he has now stopped 7 wars or 10 wars or 6 wars, it changes based on the day, that he now wants to rebrand his Department of Defense as the Department of War.
Hey USA, what's new with you? So Trump signed an order to bring back the name, the Department of War. Wait, Department of War? You had such a name? Yeah, so you know the Department of Defense now? Yeah, it used to be called the Department of War. But we changed it after World War II because Department of War just seems like we're fighting. While Department of Defense seems like we're defending our country. Now he wants to bring back the Department of War? Yeah, apparently he said that it's to celebrate our old victories in wars. Like, is he proud of wars? Like, does he like it? I don't know, but he just wants to bring back the name. Okay, but also, shouldn't Congress be the one that changes the name, not him? Yeah, you're right, but Trump said that I'm just gonna do it, and I'm sure Congress will go along with it. Seriously? Yeah, but for now, the Pentagon will use the Department of War as a secondary name. Okay, so if he's proud of all the wars and stuff, did he join a war before or anything? Well, he was old enough to join the Vietnam War. So did he join? No, he had 5 deferments. 4 because he was in college and then university, and then the 5th one because of a medical condition. So he skipped the draft and now he's proud of wars, huh? Yeah, I guess. Well, if he's doing that to distract us, we won't get distracted. We won't those Epstein files.
So Donald Trump has signed an executive order renaming the Department of Defense to the Department of War. And while the renaming sounds simple on paper, in reality, it's both legally impossible for the president to do unilaterally and strategically damaging for the United States. The Department of Defense exists because Congress created it by statute in 1949, amending the National Security Act to replace the old War Department with a unified civilian-controlled military department. Because the name is written directly into U.S. law, only Congress can change it. A president cannot simply issue an executive order and expect the name to change across the government. At best, such an order would be symbolic. At worst, it would create chaos by forcing agencies and contractors to choose between legal requirements and presidential direction. Even if Congress were to take up such a measure, the strategic downsides are immense. The current name projects a posture of defense, deterrence, collective security, reaction to evil. Switching it back to a War Department signals aggression, making the United States appear more interested in waging wars than preventing them. That perception undercuts decades of careful messaging that America's global military presence exists to defend allies, secure trade, and deter adversaries. It would hand propaganda victories to Russia, China, Iran, and extremist groups eager to paint the U.S. as a hostile, warmongering empire rather than a stabilizing force. The strain on alliances would be immediate. Every NATO treaty, bilateral defense agreement, and coalition framework cites the Department of Defense by name, so they would have to be amended in the near term and then over the long term renamed, which would require negotiations and revisions across the entire alliance structure. Even more damaging is it would raise doubts among allies about America's intentions, making it seem less a partner in collective defense and more a power bent on unilateral war. Inside the military, the practical disruptions would be pretty enormous. Every field manual, doctrine, training publication, and interagency directive that cites the Department of Defense would require some sort of revision or some sort of additional piece of paper to throw in there saying all items are now renamed this, etc., etc. Process would frankly burn huge amounts of time and manpower that should really be going to readiness and modernization. Finally, the costs cannot be ignored. Updating the IT networks, digital certificates, email domains, all of this in the largest bureaucracy in the world would alone cost billions. Every contract, every regulation, piece of legislation citing the Department of Defense would require some sort of amendment or revision. Physical assets ranging from Pentagon signage to base gates, ship hole markings, aircraft decals, seals, uniforms, the ID cards across everyone in the entire military would need to be replaced. Historical precedent shows even a small agency reorganization costs hundreds of millions. Scaling it up to the DoD's $850 billion footprint means a price tag of probably around $5 billion. So even though Trump is doing this, a president cannot legally do it alone. And even if Congress allowed it, renaming it would be strategically reckless, diplomatically damaging, militarily disruptive, and financially wasteful.
Detailed insights there. Hopefully we've picked something from that. Hopefully we would not have complete change in the military, especially like laying off some and trying to bring on new ones. Changing or rebranding the defense or Department of Defense isn't just like a military ideology or isn't just a rebranding strategy. I don't think it's Trump just trying to show his assertiveness and also the aggressive nature of how he wants the military in the US to be perceived or to be seen all around the world. To that, it has sparked a lot of controversy, especially to people who are moderates or people who are on the opposition side. While the people in the Republican side or conservative side, most of them actually do agree with what Donald Trump is doing. Even some of them saying that this is the most truthful he has ever been. But hey, if you know me, the moment I just started following politics like this close, I really do not believe the thing about changing names or rebranding departments or just things which do not even make sense. When things are just going on well, things are just the way they're supposed to be, why would you come in and just change the names? That means that you are trying to ignore deeper issues and just trying to change the face of a thing. You know, like for instance, when my face has a lot of oil and I wipe it with a piece of towel or a piece of cloth and then I just feel like I'm okay, but maybe deep down like I'm facing some skin issues. Maybe my skin is too reactive, or maybe there is some sort of acne that is in my skin, that maybe an acne scar, something like that. I'm still hiding, like I've not removed that problem. I've just removed the makeup thing. For the moderates and the liberals or the opposition, they feel like Trump is rebranding the Department of Defense in order to skip addressing the issues that is deep within the military. There is a lot of things that is going on within the military that needs to be addressed, and it seems like Donald Trump does not want to address that. I'm not going deep into that. That will be a topic of another day. That is at least their opinion, so that is how they feel. Where the other party feel like this is the most truthful they have been, and this is the most aggressive the US military will be seen, or the Department of Defense will be seen. Also, to remove that wokeism nature that is within the military, that will really do a world of good for the US Department of War or Department of Defense. I think being seen as an offensive military is good thing, but also anytime you guys can start war, or anytime the president can order, we need to draft people, we need to take our military to a certain base in a certain part of the world without warning. It's just too much to go and fight wars that you did not even start, especially the Middle East one, the Iraqi one, Afghanistan. Now you see what is going on in Israel, Gaza, Iran, just being drafted in places like this, even though like it wasn't even in your plan. Your parents are feeling this way, your partners are feeling that way, like you might pass during that. But that aside, I think we're making these things more of military and more of war and not a department issue. It might also be something like, stroking the ego of the head of the Department of Defense, Pete Hegseth. He just wants to be called Secretary of War. We've seen from different people's opinions, they don't feel like right now is the best timing of changing the name of the Department of Defense, and it doesn't make sense to them also. But I guess that is what Donald Trump administration is up to this week, and we're gonna wait and see if that executive order is gonna pass through Congress and if it's gonna be put into a law. While some feel like even though Congress would put it into a law, that move seems to be so reckless, and it does not reflect what the local Americans or what the normal American would want to. And some feel like, I think it would reflect the honesty of the Trump administration and the policies he's making. But hey guys, at this point, I leave it up to you now to share your thoughts or opinions in the comment section down there below. Please don't be shy. It will be really insightful to do so. Also, don't forget to go and check the original creators. Their usernames have been embedded in their Stitch videos as always. Please go on to their TikToks. Like, follow for this channel. Make sure you smash a huge thumbs up button. Consider subscribing to the channel. Turn on post notifications so that you may not miss my next upload. And with that guys, let me meet you in the next one. Signing out. Peace.